Every time a hospital connects a monitor, a factory powers an assembly line, or an AI processes a prompt, electricity is doing the work. When you track where all this power is actually going, you get a clear picture of the global economy. The countries consuming the most electricity are the ones currently building, manufacturing, and cooling at the highest volume. But if you line up the top 10 electricity-consuming nations, a traditional countdown from 10 to 1 is misleading. The gap between the top users and the rest of the list is so wide that a simple ranking hides the real scale of the distribution. To understand the economic forces at play, we have to divide these nations into 3 distinct tiers of scale. Tier 3 consists of advanced economies, like France at number 10, Germany at 9, and Japan at 5. These nations require a massive baseline of electricity just to maintain their dense urban centers and highly developed industrial systems. Then there are countries like Canada at number 8 and South Korea at number 7. They have smaller populations than the giants at the top of the list, but their electricity use is extremely intense compared to their size. Canada is a prime example of this intensity. Powering infrastructure across vast distances and heating buildings through extreme cold weather requires an exceptionally high amount of electricity for every person in the country. At number 6, Brazil's demand is driven by its role as South America's largest economy. It is unique among the top consumers because nearly 90% of its power comes from renewable sources, largely hydroelectric dams. Russia, at number 4, takes the opposite approach. Its reliance on heavy industry and the need to heat a massive land area through brutal winters ties its grid directly to thermal power, particularly natural gas. For the nations in Tier 3, electricity demand is a reflection of geography and industrial history. Their rankings are dictated by how they've built their economies to handle their specific climates. As we move higher, we see a significant jump in volume. India sits in Tier 2 as the world's 3rd largest consumer, and its growth is outpacing almost every other major market. India's grid presents a unique paradox. While its total volume is massive, its electricity use per person is still much lower than in richer countries. This means that as the economy develops, there is still enormous room for demand to rise. This growth is happening across the entire economy. As millions move into cities and more households buy their first major appliances, demand is rising by about 7% every year. In a hot country with a massive population, the spread of air conditioning alone creates an immense new load on the national grid. To see the scale of this expansion, consider the projected growth for the next 3 years. India is expected to add new electricity demand roughly equal to the total amount currently used by the entire United Kingdom. Because of this pace, India is one of the primary drivers of future global electricity demand. At the top, the US and China's volume dwarfs the rest of the top 10 combined. In the US, AI data centers create a massive new demand wave. Meanwhile, China consumed 32% of the world's electricity in 2023, a full third of global power. This massive demand is fueled by a gigantic industrial base, producing everything from electronics and steel to batteries and solar panels for the world. Between China, the US, and India, these 3 nations alone account for more than half of all global electricity demand. Because they represent the majority of the market, the energy decisions made by these 3 countries will determine the future of the global grid. The data from this list shows a clear trend. Even as technology becomes more efficient, total global electricity demand is accelerating rather than slowing down. We are moving into an era of widespread electrification. Electric vehicles are replacing internal combustion engines, and data-heavy AI tools are becoming standard for computing, placing unprecedented pressure on power generation. Ultimately, this ranking shows where the world is producing, manufacturing, and computing at the highest volume. These 10 countries are not just the biggest consumers today, they are the locations that will shape the next phase of global energy growth.